Kikre 24 Studios, in association with Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends Wooden Railway Adventures Productions, are both proud to present Oliver's 11. The island of Sodor was still shaken from the day's earlier events at the Vickerstown rolling bridge. The engines were in distress, and Sir Topham Hatt quickly called an emergency meeting at Knapford Station. "Settle down, everyone," he said loudly. "Now, what happened today took us all by surprise, but I can assure you that the Sodor Railway will continue to function in an orderly manner, even with—" "Oh, this is terrible," wailed Billy. "We're all going to get replaced." "I don't want to get sent to the scrapyard," protested Fergus. "I just got a fresh coat of paint for the first time in months." "I know steam engines are a thing of the past, but I never thought we'd be replaced by our own kind," mumbled Stanley. "Silence!" shouted Sir Topham Hatt. "Nobody is getting replaced or scrapped or anything like that. I would never do that to my own engines." "So, what are we going to do when these other engines come over and take our trains?" asked Percy. "There are only so many spots in the shed," agreed Murdoch. "It's only a matter of time before one side ends up frustrated and decides to take it out on the other." "Yes, some things are going to change," continued Sir Topham Hatt, "but I will work hard to minimize the effects on the passengers and, of course, my engines. Now I want you all to go back to your sheds and prepare for a busy few days ahead." Off to the side, Oliver had been listening carefully. He was puzzled at the situation. "This is only going to lead to trouble," he muttered, and he set off for the docks. That evening he found Ryan and Stafford talking with Cranky. "I'm tired," said Ryan wearily. "It's been a long and hard day for me." "Oh, hello, Oliver. I didn't see you pull in." "Hello, everyone. I'm guessing you two are the only happy engines on Sodor right now." "Sort of," replied Stafford. "Although Ryan and I are glad to hear that we'll be staying for now, there's little comfort knowing engines from the other railway are arriving as well." "And if Sir Topham Hatt is going to get rid of any engines," said Ryan, "he's going to choose us first. He wouldn't even dare think of sending an engine away like you, Oliver, because you're so important." "That's what I thought on my old railway," said Oliver quietly, "until I ended up in the scrapyard with Toad." "So, you're saying that no engine is safe?" asked Stafford. "Believe me, I wish I could tell you both that everything's going to be fine," said Oliver, "but frankly, it's not. These new engines are going to arrive and make life very difficult for the rest of us. It will be like a competition of sorts. The last engine standing wins." Stafford sighed. "Oh, bother," he groaned. Just then the engines heard a whistle and Connor came racing through the docks. He was gone just as fast as he'd arrived. "You're right, Oliver," said Ryan. "How can any of us compete with that?" "I'll see you both tomorrow," said Oliver. "Come on, Toad, let's go get some rest." That night Oliver couldn't sleep. He could only think of the mainland engines arriving and forcing his friends into the scrapyard for eternity. "You seem worried, Mr. Oliver," said Toad. "What's the matter?" "Oh, it's nothing," he replied. "Go back to sleep, Toad." "Frankly, I can't sleep either. I've been thinking about our time in the scrapyard all those years ago. We would have never made it out if it hadn't been for Mr. Douglas." "Yes," agreed Oliver. "He was our saving grace that night. We were very fortunate that he ran into us." "You see, Mr. Oliver, there's engines who need help like that everywhere. Even our good friend Ben is in peril. I'm positive Sir Topham Hatt will do something to save him, but it's troubling knowing he's in danger right now." Just then Oliver thought of something. "Toad," he said, "what if we went to the other railway and got Ben out ourselves?" Toad chuckled. "That's a funny one, Mr. Oliver. I do like a good joke now and again." "No, I'm serious," said Oliver. "If engines from the other railway can come to Sodor, why shouldn't we be able to go to the mainland too?" Toad was baffled. "Mr. Oliver, I don't think you understand the consequences if you cross that bridge," he said cautiously. "Please remember that our last trip to the other railway wasn't a very fun one." "No, think about it," continued Oliver. "Sir Topham Hatt's going to try and get Ben out himself, but that could take forever. What if we took the initiative and made a rescue attempt?" "That's extremely risky," said Toad. We don't even know where Ben is located, and if we get caught, then Sir Topham Hatt will have 2 missing engines and a brake van." But Oliver was determined. "Never mind that," he muttered. "Toad, what if Douglas had given up when he rescued us? He could have simply backed away down the line, and we probably would have never made it to Sodor. It's time we repaid the favor to an engine in need. I'm going to go find Ben tomorrow night and get him out of there." Toad didn't know what to say. "Mr. Oliver, I respect your decision, but at least tell Sir Topham Hatt what you're up to." "No, I can't do that," replied Oliver. "I can't tell Sir Topham Hatt. He wouldn't let me go if he knew what I was doing. This will have to be a top-secret mission that only you and I know about." "Well, if you're going, then so am I," said Toad firmly. "We've been through so much together. I wouldn't let you do this by yourself." Oliver was hesitant, but finally agreed. "Very well," he said. "Tomorrow morning I'll tell another engine what we're doing so they at least know where to look in case we don't return. We'll leave after the final trains have passed over the bridge and see if we can find any trace of where Ben might be." Toad smiled. "You're a very brave engine, Mr. Oliver. It's risky, all right, but it's a risk worth taking if you ask me." Eventually, the 2 friends fell asleep. The next morning, Oliver set quickly to work so that he could leave for the other railway. He was gathering some ballast cars to take up to Ulfstead Station when he noticed something peculiar. "Thomas, do you know where Daisy is?" he asked. "I don't know," replied Thomas. "She's supposed to take this milk here and leave with her passengers any moment now." Just then, the guard's whistle blew for Thomas to leave. Daisy's passengers looked around to see if their engine was coming for them. "Oh, bother," groaned Thomas. "She must have overslept again. I suppose I can make a detour. Come over here, Daisy's passengers. Looks like I'll be taking you today." The passengers were grateful that they weren't getting left behind, and Thomas puffed away. Just then, Sir Topham Hatt stepped out of his office. "Hello, Oliver," he said. "Oh dear, where is Daisy? This milk needs to go to Farmer McColl's farm immediately." "I could take it, sir," said Oliver. "No, no," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I need you up at Ulfstead with Percy. We're beginning to run behind schedule, and I'm hoping for a summer opening. I'll have to find another engine." Just then, Stepney puffed in. "Sir, there's something going on at the diesel works. They've asked for you to join them this morning." Sir Topham Hatt was cross. "Ugh, I have no time for silly games. What are these diesels up to now?" Sir Topham Hatt climbed aboard and Stepney puffed away. Eventually, Neville was sent to take the milk instead of Daisy. This was Oliver's chance. "Neville," he said, "I have something very important to tell you." "Yes, what is it?" he asked curiously. "Well, Toad and myself are going on an, adventure, so to speak. It's a bit risky and we don't know what we're going to find. If you don't see me here at the station tomorrow, would you please let Sir Topham Hatt know?" "Of course, but what's this adventure about?" asked Neville. "I can't tell you that," said Oliver quickly. "Now I must be off." "But, Oliver, you can't just say something like that. What are you and Toad up to?" "Remember," said Oliver sternly, "let Sir Topham Hatt know if we don't come back." "Come back from where?" asked Neville frantically. "Oliver, what's going on? Come back!" But Oliver had quickly puffed away. He dropped the cars off at Ulfstead Station and was preparing to leave when he heard Connor and Caitlin talking above him. "Isn't this railway wonderful, Connor?" asked Caitlin. "It has everything. Mountains, the seaside, the wild open country. I even hear there's a little railway just like this one on the other side of the island." "It sure is nice," replied Connor. "I wonder if Sir Topham Hatt would let us stay for a few days. I'd love to get to know all of the engines." "Yeah, so you can take their jobs and leave us with nothing," grunted Oliver, and he puffed quickly away. At last, evening had finally arrived. Oliver puffed into the yard to pick up Toad. "Are you ready, Mr. Oliver?" he asked nervously. "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied. "Where are you two going?" asked Edward. "Oh, nowhere. Nothing at all," replied Oliver hastily. "Just, we're off to our sheds, of course," said Toad confidently. "That's where engines and brake vans go at night, you know." Oliver smiled sheepishly. "Toad's right, you know." Edward laughed. "All right, just checking. I heard a strange rumor about you two today." What was it about? Asked Oliver curiously. I'm not quite sure, said Edward. It came from Neville, and he didn't really know what it was either. He said something about you two running away to go somewhere. It was probably nonsense to begin with. That's why you never trust a rumor, I suppose. Oliver took a deep breath and sighed. Yes, I don't know what Neville is thinking sometimes, he said calmly. Nothing out of the ordinary here, right, Toad? No, indeed, Mr. Oliver, chuckled Toad quietly. Well, I'll leave you two be, said Edward. I have to get started on putting some trains together. Apparently, the word on the main line is that the diesels are refusing to work. They're saying they've been treated unfairly or something like that. Then again, just a rumor at this point, but who knows? Edward puffed away and Oliver gasped. That's why Sir Topham Hatt went to the diesel works this morning, he said. He's probably been there all day trying to convince the diesels to come out and work. And I knew I shouldn't have trusted Neville. Oh well, at least our story sounds fake considering there's a few rumors flying around right now. We'd better get going, Mr. Oliver, said Toad. I can't see the sun behind Golden's Hill anymore. Yes, you're right. And nice save there, Toad. For a moment, I thought our mission was over before it even began. Oliver puffed out of the yard and traveled by moonlight to the Vickerstown Bridge. On the other side lay the other railway, covered in fog and looking much more mysterious than the island of Sodor. Well, this is it, said Oliver. No turning back now. His wheels crept forward onto the bridge and gracefully glided to the other side. Oliver didn't know how to explain it, but things felt different over here. Oh, bother, groaned Toad. There's a switch already. Which way should we go? Just then, the two heard a diesel's horn coming from the faraway track. Looks like we're headed this way, said Oliver, and he puffed away before the two were caught. After passing an old shed and some more switches, Oliver finally came to a stop. He couldn't believe what he saw. Look, Toad, he said, we've done it. In front of them were many different types of engines, big and small, some on freight cars, but one stood out in particular. Ben, said Oliver, you're okay. Oliver, is that you? Oh, you're here. But what are you doing here? Toad and I have come to rescue you, said Oliver quickly. You look a little different than last time. Oh, yes, chuckled Ben. A diesel kidnapped me when I was taking the supplies to the diesel works, and they stripped away my beautiful yellow paint. I guess this blue undercoat will have to do for now. Oliver was overjoyed. I can't believe you're okay, he exclaimed. Tell us who your friends are here. Of course, said Ben. Well, here's Victor. You remember him, right? Yes, I do, said Oliver. What are you doing here? I thought you were going to your new railway. I was supposed to, said Victor, but that rude railway inspector fellow cut the lines loose from the docks one afternoon and I floated away. My boat hadn't been patched up properly, and before you know it, I was sinking right on the shore next to the mainland. They hauled me out of the water and put me here in a siding where I've been ever since. Well, I'm glad you're on land and not in the ocean, said Oliver. Indeed, replied Victor. Looks like I won't be heading to my new railway after all. I'm just looking for a way to get my wheels back on some narrow-gauge rails. Don't worry, said Toad. We've come to help. And here are some more engines, continued Ben. That's Stephen, and this is Caroline. Nice to meet you all, said Oliver. Say, you look just like the Rocket. I think I've seen pictures of you before. Stephen smiled. I am the Rocket, he proclaimed. Or was the Rocket, I should say. Years of neglect have done this to me. I used to sit here next to all of my competitors and we'd share stories of the good old days while hoping for a rebuild. Then, one by one, the diesels would arrive and take them all away. Soon I was the only one left. I know you're here for Ben, but we'd love to be saved as well. Oh, yes, indeed, squealed Caroline. I remember my Sodor days fondly. Boy, did I witness some exciting cricket games. Somewhere along the line, I ended up in a rubbish heap and have gradually made my way as close to Sodor as I can. Unfortunately, I'm a vintage automobile now and can't move without my master. Funny how that nasty steamroller told me one time to go find a scrapyard, and lo and behold, I did. Don't worry, said Oliver. I'm going to help you both get out of here. If you have room for one more, I'd like to join too, said the yellow engine. I think I remember you, said Oliver. You came to Sodor for a visit one time, but then left right away. The engine looked away shyly. Yes, I did, she said. My name's Flora. I loved the island of Sodor, but I was rather snooty at the time. Just when I returned to my old railway, it was closed down all of a sudden. I didn't have time to remove my Sodor markings, so everywhere I was sent, people and engines thought I was from your railway. That's why the diesels have put me here. I'm positive my tram coach is around here somewhere too. We're happy to see you're all right, Miss Flora, said Toad. We'll see to it that you'll make it to Sodor as well. Just then, Oliver looked deep into the fog. He spotted a familiar face and gasped. Is that who I think it is? Oh my, yes it is! It's the Sodor Railway Repair! Oliver raced forward. He was ecstatic. Sir Topham Hatt's going to be so happy to see you again. We found the rest of your ballast equipment over the past few months. The Sodor Railway Repair smiled. His goggles had been cracked and he smelled of seaweed, but he was joyful nonetheless. Oliver, come back, said Ben. You need to get out of here as fast as you can. Not until I get you back to Sodor, Ben, said Oliver. Bill has been missing you like crazy. Oh, Bill, he said sadly, how I miss him too. I promise that if I ever get out of here, I'll never fight with him again. Unless it's his fault, of course. Ben's right, said Victor. There are diesels lurking around this area all the time. You'd better get going. I can't just leave you all here, said Oliver. Come on, let's all go, right now. There's a reason we're stuck here, said Flora. None of us have any coal left. Oh, of course, murmured Oliver. Well, how about this? Let me take Ben and his train back with me right now. Tomorrow night I'll return and get some more of you out of here. But Stephen was already shaking his head. It's too risky, he said sadly. If you get caught, the diesels will never let you go. There aren't too many Great Western engines still running these days. You'd better take Ben and get out of here as fast as you can. We'll find a way to make it, I promise. Yes, agreed Victor. Save your friend Ben and leave as soon as possible. No, I can't do that, said Oliver. I just can't. I've made it all the way here and I won't give up. Just then, Ben realized what was going on. Oliver, you've been in the scrapyard before, haven't you? That's not important, said Oliver quickly. What? Cried Caroline. You've been here before and now you're back again. Are you crazy? Asked Flora. No, I'm not, said Oliver firmly. Yes, Ben's right. Toad and I were in this exact scrapyard many years ago. But somebody came to save us that night, and I promise I won't leave you all here as long as I can help it. Wow, you are brave indeed, said Stephen quietly. Not too many engines out there would risk their bunkers doing something like this. Yes, indeed, said Flora. I suppose we should be thanking you instead. Don't thank us just yet, said Oliver. The sun's going to be rising soon. We need to leave now, Ben. Oliver went up the line and quickly turned around. He shunted Toad to the back of the train and ran around to the front. That way, he said, if anybody stops us, we look like a real train. Ben was excited. I get to finally move my wheels again, he exclaimed. Oliver, before you leave, there's something I need to tell you, said Victor. If an engine tries to stop you, just keep going. The bridge to Sodor isn't very far from here, so just make a mad dash for it. Also, said Stephen, beware of the diesels. They're usually lurking around here all day and night, but you've come at a lucky time. But what about the streamlined engines? Asked Oliver. Have they ever tried to help you? The engines looked confused. I haven't seen any streamlined engines over here since I arrived, said Ben. I think the diesels regulate who get to come to this part of the railway. Of course, mumbled Oliver. Well, let's get going before we get caught. And to the rest of you, I promise I will return. Nobody deserves to be left for scrap like this. I'll tell my controller what's been going on, and he'll get you out in no time." The engine smiled. "We'll see you on the other side, Ben," said Stephen. Oliver began to pull the train out of the siding. Just then, the rusty coupling between Toad and the freight car snapped. "Toad, no!" cried Oliver. He screeched to a stop. "Don't worry, Mr. Oliver. I'll be fine. Go on, get Ben to safety." "He's right," cried Victor. "There's no time to reattach the coupling. Go before it's too late." Oliver hated to leave Toad behind, but he didn't have a choice. He could hear a diesel's purr on the line behind him. "That's the patrol diesel," said Caroline. "Go, Oliver, and quickly, too." Oliver sprinted away with Ben in the cars. He raced down the line and saw Flora's tram car off to the side. The Vickerstown Bridge was in sight when Oliver came to a screeching stop. "What's the matter?" asked Ben. "We're nearly there." In front of Oliver were two lorries. One of them was sitting on the track, facing the oncoming train. "You scoundrel," said the lorry crossly, "taking away goods that don't belong to you, huh?" "Move aside," said Oliver. "These belong to me." "Oh, really?" chuckled the lorry. "Ah, Vickerstown Diesel Works, eh? I have a brother who works on Sodor. Says it's the rubbish dump of railways. I'd feel sorry for you both if I didn't let you go." Oliver managed to smile. "Lorry 3 and Lorry 2. I knew you both would return someday. Which one of the three are you? Smashed, broken, or sunk?" "Watch your mouth, you Great Western fleabag," shouted Lorry 2. "We'll let you go this time, only because you've got nothing that interests us." "But if we see you here again," growled Lorry 3, "we'll let the diesels know and you'll be headed to the smelters." Oliver wasn't fazed. He let off steam and moved slightly forward. Lorry 3 quickly moved off the track. "Thank you very much," he chuckled, and Oliver puffed away with the train. The lorries were cross at the situation. "Did you see him?" said Lorry 2. "He about ran over you." "I don't care very much for engines like him," said Lorry 3. "What say you and I pay a visit to Sodor and finish him off once and for all?" Lorry 2 nodded to his brother. Back on Sodor, Oliver and Ben had made it. They didn't stop puffing until they were safely back at Knapford Station. "No way!" cried James. "Look, everyone, it's Ben!" "Cinders and ashes!" exclaimed Gordon. "Oliver's found Ben and brought him back." Engines quickly gathered around and were eagerly asking questions. At last, Sir Topham had emerged from his office, wondering what the commotion was all about. "Why isn't anybody working?" he asked loudly. "Oh my! Ben! And Oliver! What's going on here?" "Oliver saved me, sir," said Ben. "He saved me from scrap." "Unbelievable," said Ryan. "I'm going to go let Bill know of the good news." Oliver was exhausted. He had been up all night, and Ben's train had been very heavy. "How did this happen?" asked Gordon. "Oliver, did you go rescue Ben all by yourself?" "Yes," said Oliver. "He needs some coal and a new coat of paint, but other than that, he's the same old China Clay twin." The engines were amazed that Ben had been returned safely. Sir Topham Hatt didn't know what to say. "Well, Oliver, I can't say I'm surprised, because you've always been the type of engines to do risky things like this. Welcome home, Ben. Let's get you to the works." Oliver was uncoupled from the train and immediately went and found a nice quiet place to sleep. At the same time, he was dreadfully worried about Toad, and hoped that he would be okay until he was able to retrieve him. Later that day, the two lorries made their way across the bridge and stared at what lay in front of them. "Ugh, what a mess," said Lorry 2. "I don't understand what all the fuss is about." "Agreed," said Lorry 3. "It's just an island, nothing special about it anyway." "Ah, look what we have here." The lorries noticed the two big bridges that led up to the points where the drawbridge was located. "It'd be a shame if these bridges came tumbling down," snickered Lorry 3. "Smart idea," agreed Lorry 2. "That way, that green engine can't return and take more of his friends with them. Let's get started on the demolition, shall we?" The lorries were planning on destroying the two bridges so that the engines couldn't get to the other railway. Meanwhile, Oliver had finally gotten to rest a bit and wearily rolled into the docks. The engines were eagerly talking about Ben's thrilling escape. "Here's the engine of the hour," exclaimed Molly. "Well done, Oliver. You were extremely brave." "Oh, it was nothing," said Oliver. "The job's not finished, however." "What?" asked Douglas. "You can't be serious. You wouldn't dare go back, would you?" "There's more engines that need to be saved," replied Oliver. "I can't just leave them there." Hero, one of the new engines, spoke up. "Wait a moment. Oliver, did you travel to the other railway?" "Yes, I did," he replied. "What's it to you?" "I just can't believe you made it back," said Hero. "Usually there are diesels prowling around by the bridge all the time looking for engines like you. How did you manage not to get caught?" "I suppose I was lucky," said Oliver. He wasn't in the mood for answering all of these questions. "Lucky would be an understatement," said Hero. "I've heard rumors that there are scrapyards on that part of the railway with steam engines in them, but the diesels never let anybody over there." "So it is true," murmured Oliver. "Now it makes sense. Originally I thought you and Connor and Caitlin just didn't want to help the other engines, but you actually aren't allowed on that line, are you?" "No, we aren't," said Hero. "Luckily we've been treated very nicely on our side of the railway. We get washdowns and have a nice shed to sleep in, but we don't dare travel over to the scrapyards for fear we might end up in them. And honestly, we really didn't know if there were any engines in there until now." "Well, now that you know," said Molly, "maybe you and Connor and Caitlin should help Oliver get the rest of the engines out." "It would be tough," said Hero. "We'd have to speak to our supervisor beforehand, of course." "And he's going to say no," said Oliver confidently. "Don't worry about it, Hero. I'll figure something out." And he puffed away. That night, Oliver went to the coal depot to fill up before leaving again. Instead, he found Sir Topham Hatt waiting for him. "Oliver, there you are," he said. "What are you doing?" "Nothing, sir," said Oliver quickly. "Just heading back to the sheds, that's all." "Tidmouth is on the other side of the island," said Sir Topham Hatt firmly. "Are you filling up on coal again so you can go to the other railway?" "Well, I am nearly out of coal," said Oliver shyly. Sir Topham Hatt sighed. "Oliver, what you did today was extremely brave, and Ben is very gracious that you saved him. But you also went behind my back and did this without permission. I can't let you risk yourself by attempting the same mission again. You are not allowed to go to the other railway and rescue any more engines." Oliver was shocked. "But, sir, there are engines over there who need our help." "Yes, and I will see to it that they are free as soon as possible. I plan on visiting the other railway within a few weeks and hopefully setting them free." "A few weeks!" cried Oliver. "Sir, that's not soon enough. Those engines live in fear every day, thinking that at any point a diesel will roll in and take them to be cut up. I can't sit idly by knowing that there are helpless engines just over the bridge that need someone to come in and save them." But Sir Topham Hatt remained firm. "I have everything planned out," he said confidently. "I'll try and save those other engines as soon as possible. As for now, you are forbidden from entering the other railway without my consent." "But, sir, they have towed!" cried Oliver. "What?" asked Sir Topham Hatt. "You didn't! Oh dear, now Toad's in danger too. And the Sodor Railway repair is there as well. Don't you see, sir? We can't wait a second longer if we don't want these engines to be scrapped." "I understand, but this is no longer your concern," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I will deal with everything tomorrow. In the meantime, the diesels are refusing to work, so I guess some of the mainland engines will have to help with the trains. You are to show up to Ulfstead tomorrow and help Percy with the project, or else I will send you to your shed for a week. Is that understood?" Oliver looked away glumly. "Yes, sir," he said sadly. "Good. I don't want you running around and saving the day. I appreciate your bravery. I really do, but I can't afford to lose a good engine like you." Sir Topham Hatt walked away, and Oliver had never felt sadder. "Poor Toad," he muttered. That night the lorries were still working on the bridges. "You see here," said Lorry 3, "if you back into the pillar like this, then your head doesn't hurt." "Are you sure?" asked Lorry 2. "Let me see. Oh, ouch. Yeah, that hurt. A lot." "Aha," grunted Lorry 3. "A few more hours of this, and the bridge will collapse the second an engine goes over it." The next morning, Oliver left the sheds to find Bill and Ben eagerly talking. "Thank you so much for saving Ben," said Bill. "Without my twin, I wouldn't know what to do." "It's no trouble at all," said Oliver quietly. "I just wish there was more I could do." At Ulfstead, Oliver found it hard to work. He couldn't get his mind off Toad and the other engines stuck in the scrapyard. "What you did was very brave," said Ryan as he pulled up. "If you need a friend to go with you next time, just let me know. I'd be happy to help you." "I don't think there is going to be a next time," said Oliver sadly. "Sir Topham Hatt's banned me from going anywhere near the Vickerstown rolling bridge, and I really don't want to spend the next week in the shed either." Ryan looked around. "I'm not prompting rebellion," he said quietly, "but I think Sir Topham Hatt's wrong. I know he's only trying to look after you, but you actually went in and made a difference. One less engine is scrap-free thanks to you. Sir Topham Hatt's going to try and do things his way by working up a compromise and being all professional and such, but that's going to take forever. If you're ready for another attempt, then so am I." Oliver looked at Ryan. "Are you sure you're comfortable with doing something this risky?" he asked him. "Oh, not in the slightest," chuckled Ryan. "But sometimes you have to take risks in order to help out your friends." "You're right," said Oliver. "We shouldn't wait a second longer. Let's go tonight, you and me. We'll get in and out of there as fast as we can." The two engines were very excited about the plan. Oliver went to find Neville that afternoon. Some other engines were sitting at the turntable talking. "Pah!" exclaimed Gordon. "Sir Topham Hatt would never let that engine Connor pull the express. I'm much faster than he is." "Oh, I don't know, Gordon," said Whiff. "Connor raced by me so quickly this morning that I was nearly blown off the rails." "Just because he's streamlined doesn't mean he's quicker," argued Gordon. "If I were a streamlined engine, I'd probably be the fastest in the world." "Ugh," groaned Rosie, "that's not a pretty picture." "Agreed," said Whiff. "Some engines just aren't meant to be streamlined." "Psst," whispered Oliver to Neville. "I need to tell you something." "Oh no," said Neville firmly. "I don't want in on your plans anymore. You know I can't keep a secret." "Well, I didn't know originally, but then I heard you went around the island telling everybody I was up to something," said Oliver crossly. "But never mind that. I'm attempting another adventure tonight, if you know what I mean, and if I don't return by tomorrow morning, then you need to tell Sir Topham Hatt." "Oliver, I can't do this," protested Neville. "I don't want to be the bearer of bad news if you don't come back. How about I go with you instead?" "Oh no," said Oliver. "With Ryan aboard, there are simply too many engines involved." "Ryan's going!" exclaimed Neville. "Oh, I shouldn't have said that," murmured Oliver quietly. "I could never tell Sir Topham Hatt that two of his engines have gone missing," continued Neville. "Let me join you and Ryan. I promise I'll be helpful." "And if I don't let you?" asked Oliver. "Well, then I might just go tell Sir Topham Hatt what you're up to," said Neville cheekily. "Oh, fine," sighed Oliver. "Meet me here at midnight, and don't tell anybody else." "Sure thing," said Neville happily. Just then Connor puffed up. "Hello, fellow engines," he smiled happily. "What are we talking about today?" Gordon and his friends grew silent. "Nothing," he murmured. "Just Sodor Railway business." "Oh," said Connor sadly. "I see. I suppose I'll be going now." Connor puffed away from the engines. "Why were you so gruff with him?" asked Rosie. "Because," argued Gordon, "these new engines are out to take our jobs. If we're not friendly, then they won't think Sodor is a nice place, and they'll go back to where they came from." "I don't think that is such a good idea," said Whiff. "A lot of feelings are going to get hurt for sure." "Nonsense," replied Gordon. "Lots of other engines have been acting the same way. I can't remember who said it, but somebody referred to it as a competition? Ah, yes. The last engine standing, if I recall correctly. Oh, bother, whispered Oliver, and he puffed quickly away. For the rest of the day, Oliver tried to stay hidden. He knew that if Sir Topham had gotten word of his plan, the mission would be over before it even started. At last, the sun had set and the moon was rising. Oliver arrived at Knapford Station where Ryan and Neville greeted him. "All right," said Oliver, "this is going to be a very dangerous mission with the possibility that we might get trapped on the other railway. Now's your last chance to back out." "I'm ready," said Ryan confidently. "Me too," agreed Neville. "So am I," came a voice. The engines looked to the yard where they found Stafford shunting trucks. "No, Stafford, you can't come with us," said Oliver. "But I want to," he protested. "I just finished recharging, so I have a full battery. You might need me in case one of you runs out of coal." "He has a point, you know," said Ryan. "Fine," said Oliver, "but no more engines. This rescue party won't be very successful if half of Sodor decides to come with us." Just then, Sir Topham Hatt opened the door and walked out of his office. Oliver immediately froze. "Ah, hello everyone," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I've been working late because I just got off the telephone with one of the supervisors from the other railway. We're going to have a meeting in the coming weeks to discuss the scrapyard engines. Now, I know that's a long time to wait, Oliver, especially since Toad is over there, but I'm sure it will be worth it in the end." "Yes, sir," said Oliver nervously. "I understand." "Excellent, but what are you all doing here?" asked Sir Topham Hatt. "It's very late, you know." None of the engines knew what to say. Just chatting, I suppose," stuttered Stafford. "You suppose?" asked Sir Topham Hatt. "Wait a minute. Oliver, you aren't—" "Sorry, sir, but we have to go," cried Oliver, and the engines raced out of the station. "Get back here, all of you!" shouted Sir Topham Hatt. "Oh dear, this is terrible. Well, at least you're still here, Stafford." "Stafford? Where'd he go?" But all of the engines had left at once. Oliver raced towards the drawbridge as fast as he could. As soon as he was on the other side, he screeched to a stop to wait for his friends. Neville and Stafford soon appeared, and they stopped just short of the bridge. Unfortunately for Ryan, the pillars collapsed as he passed overhead, and the whole bridge came tumbling down. "Ryan!" shouted Oliver. "Are you okay?" "I think so," he said back. "Keep going without me. I'll be fine." "That was a close one," said Neville. "That could have been everyone had we all gone over the bridge at once." "We need to hurry," said Oliver. "I'm sure some diesels heard the bridge collapse and they know something's up." "You're right," said Caitlin as she pulled up. "I was wondering what that loud noise was." "Please, don't tell anyone we're here," said Neville. "I'm not going to," said Caitlin. "I heard what you did, Oliver, and I have to say it was extremely brave. I think I can help you." No thanks," said Oliver. "We need to get going." "Wait, Oliver," said Stafford. "I think she has a point." "Just hear me out," continued Caitlin. "I know you Sodor engines are worried that we're going to come over and take your jobs and force you all into the sheds. But the truth is, we're not. We'll still work on our railway, and sometimes we'll come over and drop our trains off at your stations. We won't be taking anything from you. In fact, we'll just be helping with the workload." Oliver realized that Caitlin made a good point. "You're right," he said, "and I'm sorry. We're all sorry for the way we've treated you and Connor and Hero. We were afraid you were all going to replace us, and we didn't want that to happen." "Indeed," said Neville. "Once this is all done, we'll be sure you're treated properly." "Thanks," said Caitlin. "Well, now that I'm here, let me help you with your rescue. I think I have a pretty clever idea." And she whispered her plan to the other engines. Meanwhile, two troublesome diesels sat in their sidings as the moon rose overhead. "Yuck, this shed stinks," said Bowler. "It needs a washdown real bad." "It must be you," replied Spancan. "You're the only engine that ever sleeps in it." "Ugh, good point," he muttered. "Hey, what's this engine doing?" Caitlin was backing up with her coaches. "Oh, don't mind me," she said cheerfully. "I'll be out of here before you know it." "You're not supposed to be here," grunted Spam Can. "Yeah," agreed Bowler. "Get your filthy tender out of here." Caitlin's coaches moved closer and closer to Stephen and Caroline. "Look, look," said Stephen happily. "I think we're about to get a quick way out of here." "Oh, I do despise going fast," grumbled Caroline. "Better hang on then," he chuckled. Caitlin's coaches were coupled up to Stephen. "Sorry for getting in the way," said Caitlin to the Diesels. "I'll be off now." And she raced away with Stephen and Caroline in tow. "Whee!" shouted Stephen. "So long, suckers!" "What just happened?" exclaimed Bowler. "Did she take those scrap engines with her?" "I think she did," said Spam Can. "Let me go see what this is all about." Back at the bridge, Oliver and his friends were waiting for Caitlin to arrive. "The coast is clear," she said as she puffed by. "Good luck." "All right, now's our chance," said Oliver. "Let's go." Neville led the rescue party down the line. He quickly reversed down the track towards the scrapyard. "Halt!" shouted Bowler. "Who are you? What's your name?" Stuttered Neville. "You know me. I'm a diesel, just like you." Bowler looked the strange engine over. "Well, you do look like a diesel, but I've never seen you before." "Oh, I'm one of Diesel 10's new recruits. I'm actually here to take the watch from you so you can go rest." "Oh, thank goodness!" exclaimed Bowler. "I didn't want to have to stay up all night. And by the way, there's a pink engine running around here with some of those scrap things. If you see her, just let me know." "Will do," chuckled Neville. Bowler backed into his shed and immediately fell asleep. Stafford came zooming down the line, silent as ever because of his electric engine. "Let's get these engines out of here," he said quietly. Neville coupled up to Victor and Stafford went to pick up Flora. "Don't forget about the Sodor Railway repair over there," she said. "Don't worry," said Stafford. "We've got one more friend on the way." Oliver quickly puffed in and coupled up to Toad. "Mr. Oliver, you're here!" he exclaimed happily. "Yes, I am, Toad," smiled Oliver. "Now let's get everybody out of here." Neville and Stafford quickly rolled away with their respective engines. "Let's stop and get that coach that belongs to you," said Stafford to Flora. Oliver went over and moved the Sodor Railway repair out of the siding. "We don't have much time, Mr. Oliver," said Toad nervously. "I think I hear a diesel coming up behind us." Oliver realized he was out of time. He charged down the line with the Sodor Railway repair in front of him and then slammed on the brakes. His goggle-eyed friend went zooming around the corner and over the bridge to safety. "That was a smart move," said Toad. "Now let's get out of here." "Oliver, I think you should check out this siding," said Stafford. "There's an engine looking for you." "An engine? Looking for me?" asked Oliver. "Who could that be?" Oliver and Toad puffed into the siding and saw a familiar face staring back at them. "Spencer!" gasped Oliver. "What are you doing here?" "I've been stuck here for months," he said sadly. "What happened? I thought you were Diesel 10's right-hand engine." "I used to be," continued Spencer, "but after Thomas saved the day all those months ago, Diesel 10 blamed me for everything and took away my new paint. Oh, I should have known this was going to happen." "Hey, you!" shouted Spam Can. "Who are you? What's your name?" "We're out of time, Mr. Oliver," said Toad. "We need to leave." Oliver looked at Spencer, then back at Spam Can. He realized he needed to make a choice. "Don't move!" shouted Spam Can. "Looks like we found the culprit who's been letting all of the engines from the scrapyard escape. Wake up, Bowler!" "Go, Oliver," said Spencer. "Leave me here. I'll be fine." But Oliver didn't listen. He rushed over and quickly coupled up to Spencer. He backed up and ran into Spam Can hard, knocking him down the line. "Don't let him get away!" shouted Bowler. With all of his might, Oliver pushed Spencer and pulled Toad as hard as he could. There, waiting for him at the switch, was Connor. "Go, Oliver!" he cried. "You're almost there!" With his last ounce of steam, Oliver made it over the bridge just as his safety valve burst in spectacular fashion. Connor moved slightly forward to block Spancan from entering the Sodor Railway. "Hooray!" cried Toad. "You did it, Mr. Oliver!" "We're up here!" cried Stafford. "This is the only way to get back since the other bridge is down." Just below them, the lorries were still hard at work. "Just a few more hits," shouted Lorry 3. "Then we'll have all of these engines at the bottom of the ravine." Oliver saw the lorries and realized what was going on. "Look out!" he shouted. "Get off the bridge, quickly!" Stafford backed away just in time. Lorry 2 made a huge hit in the pillar, and the entire bridge tipped over and collapsed. "Take that!" shouted Lorry 3. "You haven't seen the last of us, that's for sure." And the lorries quickly raced away. Oliver and his friends were relieved that they were safe, but it soon dawned on them that they were now trapped with nowhere to go. "Move out of the way!" shouted Spamcan. "These engines are mine!" "No, they aren't," said Connor strictly, "and there's nothing you can do to make me move." Oliver was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. There had been a few close calls, but they had all made it home. Spencer was extremely grateful. "Thank you, Oliver," he said happily. "Oh, how I've missed the island of Sodor." The engines were stranded for a few days until the smaller bridge was repaired. Of course, Sir Topham Hatt was extremely upset that Oliver had disobeyed him. In exchange for spending a week in the shed, however, Sir Topham Hatt sent Oliver to the works to fix his broken safety valve. There he was reunited with his Great Western friend Duck, and the two quickly returned to work. Meanwhile, the Duke and Duchess finally arrived back from their long trip around the world, and were eager to find that Spencer was still on Sodor. Unbeknownst to them, Sir Topham Hatt promised not to say anything of Spencer's terrible deeds while they were gone, as long as he agreed to be really useful and apologize to a certain engine. After being mended, the Sodor Railway repair returned and Spencer apologized for his actions. The Sodor Railway repair, of course, didn't say a word, but the smile on his face was enough to let Sir Topham Hatt know that the apology would suffice. Stephen, Caroline, and Victor were all sent to the works as well. Caroline was reunited with her master, and after being fixed, she and Stepney had a wonderful reunion where they remembered their infamous cricket escapade many years ago. Since the works was overcrowded with engines, Victor and Stephen had to wait a bit until some other engines returned. The two became great friends, and Victor promised to oversee Stephen's entire restoration process. They were finally sent to the works once Oliver and Duck had returned. The Diesels soon realized that the mainland engines would take their jobs if they didn't get back to work. And with the Diesel Works equipment returned in one piece, Sir Topham Hatt promised them that they would get the overhaul they so greatly deserved. Even though both sides got off to a rough start, the Sodor engines welcomed Hero, Connor, and Caitlin and the other mainland engines warmly. They are often seen pulling passengers and freight trains during the day and returning to the mainland at sunset. As for Oliver and Toad, they couldn't believe what had happened over the past few days. "You know, Toad," said Oliver one night, "you have a nasty habit of disappearing when I need you most." "My sincerest apologies, Mr. Oliver," chuckled Toad, "but it's your fault for letting me get away so easily." Oliver smiled. Oh, what a whirlwind that was! To think that such a small idea could turn into something so big. You could have thought I was crazy, Toad, but instead you supported me, and we got to take on the biggest adventure of our lives. And, to be honest, I never could have done it by myself. But the 11 of us came together, from all different backgrounds and classes, shapes and sizes. We as a team made it happen. I will always be forever thankful for the great group of engines that never left my side. What do you think, Toad?" But Toad had already fallen asleep and was snoring peacefully. "Figures," chuckled Oliver. "Well, good night, Toad. Thanks for the thrills. I wonder what the next adventure will hold for us."